There will come a moment in your life when everything you relied on, every person, every illusion of certainty, every comforting hand, will disappear. It won't be a dramatic betrayal. It won't be a sudden collapse. No, it will be something far more dangerous. A slow, quiet realization that no one is coming to save you, that the world does not owe you understanding, that strength, true strength, is not found in the hands of others, but within. And if you do not learn how to stand alone, you will never truly stand at all. The greatest men in history were not the ones who depended on the world. They were the ones who mastered themselves. They knew something most people will never understand. The secret to freedom is self-reliance. The ability to walk through life without needing validation, without clinging to the approval of others, without fearing solitude. Because the moment you learn how to exist without needing anyone is the moment you become untouchable. The world does not break men who do not fear being alone. It cannot control those who have no dependencies, and it cannot shake those who have built their foundation on their own unshakable discipline. The ancient Stoics understood this better than anyone. They lived by a philosophy that was not just about endurance, but about mastery. Mastery of the mind, mastery of the emotions, and most importantly, mastery of the self. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they all understood that a man who relies on no one is a man who is truly free. Because if you do not need, you cannot be controlled. Today, you are going to learn 8 habits that will set you free. If you master these, you will never again feel dependent on anyone for your happiness, your peace, or your purpose. Most people live their entire lives without ever realizing this truth. They spend decades chasing approval, fearing loneliness, and searching for fulfillment outside of themselves, never realizing that everything they need has been within them all along. But you are here now, and what you are about to learn will change the way you see the world forever. Are you ready? Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. Every like, subscribe helps us continue our mission of sharing knowledge. And leave a comment below and share your opinion on these habits, or tell me which one resonates with you the most. Ready to unlock more wisdom? Let's get started. Habit 1. The art of absolute self-sufficiency. Wisdom seekers, imagine a life where you no longer depend on anyone, where your emotions, your happiness, your peace, and your purpose are fully within your own control. Not in theory, not as an empty motivational phrase, but as an unshakable truth embedded in your soul. A state of being where loneliness does not touch you, where loss does not break you, where rejection does not sting, and where betrayal only teaches you. This is not just resilience, it is the highest form of self-mastery. It is the art of absolute self-sufficiency, and it is the first habit you must master if you wish to walk through life needing no one. To understand true self-sufficiency, we must start by destroying a dangerous illusion, the belief that we need others to feel complete. Society has programmed you to think that you require companionship, approval, or external support to be happy. From childhood, you were taught that happiness is found in relationships, that success is measured by social status, and that validation from others determines your worth. This is a lie. The greatest men in history, philosophers, warriors, emperors, were the ones who understood that everything they needed was already within them. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, ruled over the most powerful empire of his time. Yet he wrote in his private journals, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." He understood that even with the weight of an empire on his shoulders, his true strength came from within, not from the people around him. When you master self-sufficiency, you become a fortress, untouchable by the chaos of the world. But self-sufficiency is not isolation. It is not about cutting yourself off from people or rejecting human connection. It is about no longer being dependent on it. When you no longer rely on others for your happiness, you can enjoy relationships without fear, without attachment, without desperation. You no longer beg for love, chase approval, or cling to people who don't value you. Instead, you stand firm in your own power, knowing that you alone are enough. To cultivate this habit, you must first master the ability to be alone. Not just physically alone, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually alone. Can you sit in silence without reaching for distractions? Can you go a full day without seeking validation? Can you find peace within yourself instead of looking for it in others? If not, you are still a prisoner to external forces. Seneca, another great Stoic thinker, wrote, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." If you are always waiting for someone to make you happy, for circumstances to change, for external validation to arrive, you are not truly living. The self-sufficient man does not wait for happiness. He creates it from within. He finds purpose in solitude. He finds strength in silence. He finds peace in his own mind. The first step to achieving this is to eliminate neediness. Neediness is the enemy of self-sufficiency. It is the root of suffering, the poison of the weak. When you need someone to love you, you give them power over you. When you need approval, you become a slave to opinions. When you need company to feel whole, you are incomplete on your own. The self-sufficient man does not need, he chooses. He does not beg, he decides. You must train yourself to detach from emotional dependence. This does not mean suppressing emotions but mastering them. When someone leaves, you do not collapse. When someone insults you, you do not react. When life shifts in unexpected ways, you remain steady. The world does not control you. You control yourself. There is a simple yet brutal test to know whether you have mastered this habit. If everything and everyone you love disappeared tomorrow, could you still stand tall? Could you still find meaning? Could you still move forward without breaking? If the answer is no, then your strength is borrowed, not built. True power is when everything external is stripped away, and yet you remain unshaken. This level of self-sufficiency is rare, but it is not impossible. It is built daily, in small but deliberate actions. It starts with mastering solitude, detaching from neediness, and training your mind to find fulfillment from within. When you reach this level, you become a man who needs no one, who fears nothing, and who walks through life with quiet, unbreakable confidence. Habit 2. Mastering the indifference of the Stoic mind. Imagine a man who cannot be offended. No insult wounds him. No rejection stings him. No praise inflates his ego. He moves through life unaffected by the shifting tides of opinions, emotions, and external chaos. This man is untouchable, not because he is emotionless, but because he has mastered the art of indifference. This is the second habit you must cultivate, the power of indifference. The modern world is full of distractions, emotional traps, and illusions designed to manipulate you. Social media fuels your insecurities. Advertisements convince you that you are lacking. Society pressures you to conform. The opinions of others constantly seek to define you. But what if none of it mattered? What if you could strip away the noise and move through life completely unaffected by the things that torment the average man? Epictetus, the great Stoic philosopher, taught that men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. The things that trouble you, the criticism, the failures, the betrayals, are not the problem. Your reaction to them is. If you master indifference, you master life. Indifference is not about apathy. It is not about ceasing to care about life. It is about choosing what deserves your attention and what does not. Most people waste their energy on things that do not matter, arguing with strangers, chasing approval, worrying about the past. The Stoic mind understands that these things are meaningless. To master indifference, you must first train yourself to detach from the need for validation. The praise of others should not excite you, and their criticism should not affect you. If a stranger insults you, does it change who you are? If someone praises you, does it make you better than you were before? No. Praise and criticism are just words, and words only have power if you give it to them. Next, you must develop the ability to remain calm in the face of chaos. Life will test you. People will betray you. Plans will fail. The weak man panics, reacts emotionally, and falls apart. The indifferent man observes, adjusts, and moves forward without losing his balance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the secret of indifference. It does not mean ignoring reality. It means not allowing reality to control you. You acknowledge what happens, but you do not let it shake you. If something is within your control, you act. If it is beyond your control, you let it go. Either way, you remain steady. Developing this habit requires constant practice. It begins with small things, learning not to react to minor annoyances, refusing to engage in pointless arguments, training yourself to let go of things that do not matter. Over time, this becomes second nature. The man who has mastered indifference becomes truly free. He does not chase, he does not beg, he does not react. He observes, he decides, and he moves forward with complete control over himself. This is the power that few men ever achieve. The power of a mind that bows to nothing. Habit 3. The discipline of the unshakable will. Wisdom seekers, there is a force inside you that you have barely tapped into. A fire that, if fully ignited, can make you unstoppable. It is not talent, not intelligence, not luck. It is your will. The iron will of a man determines his destiny more than anything else. It is what separates the weak from the strong, the ordinary from the extraordinary. It is the third habit you must master, the discipline of the unshakable will. Many men drift through life, controlled by circumstance. They react instead of act. They allow setbacks to break them, failures to define them, and pain to weaken them. These men are like leaves in the wind, blown in whichever direction life pushes them. But the man with an unshakable will is different. He is a force of nature, a man who bends the world to his will rather than being bent by it. He decides who he is, what he will become, and how he will face life, no matter the challenges. To develop an unshakable will, you must first understand one thing. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. Life will throw obstacles in your path. You will experience failure, betrayal, hardship, and disappointment. But these are not reasons to stop. They are tests. Every great man in history has faced suffering, and yet they endured. Why? Because they saw pain not as a reason to quit, but as fuel to grow stronger. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the essence of an unshakable will. It is the ability to continue, no matter what. When the weak man says, "I can't," the strong man says, "I must." When the weak man gives up, the strong man pushes forward. But willpower is not just about enduring hardship. It is about self-discipline in all areas of life. A man with an iron will does not indulge in weakness. He does not allow laziness to take hold, excuses to control him, or desires to dictate his actions. He masters himself in every way. Look at your life. Where do you lack discipline? Do you struggle to wake up early? Do you let distractions steal your focus? Do you allow negative emotions to control you? If so, then your will is weak. And if your will is weak, you are vulnerable. You can be manipulated, controlled, and broken by anything that is stronger than you. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." This means that if you want to be strong, you must embrace difficulty. Do not run from struggle, seek it. The gym does not build muscle without resistance. The mind does not become sharp without challenge. The will does not become unbreakable without hardship. The first step to developing an iron will is to do what is difficult every single day. Challenge yourself. Take cold showers. Wake up early. Push your body beyond its limits. Sit in silence and train your mind. Do things that make you uncomfortable. Every time you choose discomfort over ease, you forge your will into something stronger. The second step is to eliminate excuses. There is no room for weakness in a man who seeks power. You do not have the luxury of waiting for motivation. You do not have the privilege of complaining. There is no someday. There is only today, and what you do with it. Excuses are the language of the weak. The strong man acts. Finally, you must commit to something greater than yourself. Men with an unshakable will do not live for comfort. They live for purpose. They have a mission that drives them, something so powerful that nothing can stop them. What is your mission? What are you willing to suffer for? If you do not know, then you are drifting. And a man who drifts is a man who is easily broken. The world does not belong to those who are intelligent, lucky, or privileged. It belongs to those who refuse to break. The man with an iron will does not ask if he can do something. He decides that he will, and then he makes it happen. When you cultivate this habit, you become a force that nothing can stop. Habit 4. The mastery of emotional detachment. Wisdom seekers, imagine standing in the middle of a storm, the winds howling, the rain pounding, and yet you remain unmoved. Imagine walking through fire without flinching, standing in the face of chaos without fear, and never allowing emotions to dictate your actions. This is the power of emotional detachment. It is the fourth habit you must master if you wish to be truly independent. Most men are slaves to their emotions. They allow anger to control their actions, love to make them weak, fear to hold them back, and sadness to consume them. They react impulsively, make poor decisions, and live in a constant state of inner turmoil. But the man who has mastered emotional detachment is different. He does not suppress his emotions, he controls them. He does not deny his feelings, he understands them. And because of this, he remains untouchable. Emotional detachment is not about becoming cold or heartless. It is about maintaining control over yourself, no matter what happens. It is about never allowing external events to dictate your inner state. This is the essence of Stoicism. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." This means that no one can make you angry, no one can make you sad, no one can control your emotions unless you allow them to. If someone insults you, you have two choices: react emotionally like a weak man, or remain indifferent like a king. Which one do you choose? To master emotional detachment, you must first recognize that emotions are temporary and often deceptive. Have you ever made a decision in anger that you later regretted? Have you ever felt despair, only to realize later that things were not as bad as they seemed? This is because emotions cloud judgment. The wise man understands this, and so he does not act based on temporary feelings. He acts based on reason. The next step is to create space between stimulus and response. When something happens that triggers an emotion, do not react immediately. Pause. Breathe. Observe the emotion without acting on it. This small gap is the difference between a slave and a master. The slave reacts without thinking. The master chooses his response. Another key to emotional detachment is understanding impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. Not pain, not joy, not love, not hate. When you grasp this truth, you stop clinging to things that will inevitably change. You do not become attached to relationships, outcomes, or possessions because you understand that they are temporary. This does not mean you do not care. It means you do not depend on anything external for your peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The moment you fully accept this truth, you become invincible. No rejection can break you. No insult can shake you. No loss can destroy you. You become a man who moves through life with absolute control over himself, free from the chaos that enslaves others. Emotional detachment is not easy. It requires daily practice, self-awareness, and relentless discipline. But when you master it, you reach a level of power that few men ever attain. You become a man who cannot be manipulated, cannot be broken, and cannot be controlled by anything or anyone. Master your emotions, and you master yourself. Master yourself, and you master the world. Habit 5. The relentless pursuit of inner stillness. Wisdom seekers, imagine a mind so calm, so steady that no storm can disturb it. Imagine walking through the chaos of life as if moving through a dream, unshaken by distractions, immune to the noise of the world. This is not a fantasy. It is the power of inner stillness. The greatest men in history, the warriors, the philosophers, the emperors, all had one thing in common. They mastered the art of stillness. Not the stillness of the body, but the stillness of the mind. It is the fifth habit you must cultivate, for without it, you will forever be a prisoner to the chaos around you. We live in a world addicted to movement. People are constantly rushing, constantly busy, constantly filling their minds with distractions. They jump from one thought to the next, one stimulus to another, never stopping, never resting. And yet they wonder why they feel exhausted, anxious, and lost. They have never learned the power of stillness. They do not realize that true strength is not found in motion, but in the ability to be completely still, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." This is the secret. The world will never be quiet, but you can be. Wars will rage, people will betray you, life will throw chaos in your path, but none of it matters if your mind remains untouched. A truly powerful man does not find peace in the absence of problems. He finds peace despite them. He does not require perfect conditions to be calm. He carries his stillness with him, like an unbreakable shield. To develop inner stillness, you must first train yourself to detach from external distractions. The modern world is designed to keep you restless. Social media, news, entertainment. These things keep your mind constantly engaged, constantly seeking stimulation. But the more you chase these distractions, the more control you lose over your own thoughts. The first step towards stillness is to break free from the addiction to noise. Spend time in silence. Turn off your devices. Sit alone with your thoughts. If this makes you uncomfortable, it is because you have become dependent on distraction. This is a weakness, and it must be destroyed. The next step is to train your mind to slow down. Most people's thoughts are chaotic, jumping from one thing to another without rest. This is why they feel anxious, why they struggle to focus, why they lack clarity. A man who masters stillness does the opposite. He slows his thoughts, controls them, observes them like a king watching over his kingdom. He does not let his mind run wild, he commands it. When a thought arises, he examines it, questions it, and decides whether it is worth his attention. This practice is ancient. The Stoics understood it. The samurai practiced it. The great philosophers lived by it. They all knew that the most powerful weapon a man can possess is not his strength, not his intelligence, but his ability to remain still in any situation. When others panic, he remains calm. When others react emotionally, he remains steady. When others are lost in the noise, he stands in perfect silence, seeing things as they truly are. But stillness is not just about control, it is also about clarity. A man who is always moving, always thinking, always reacting, cannot see the truth. He is too blinded by his own chaos. But the man who is still sees everything clearly. He does not act on impulse. He does not rush decisions. He moves through life with precision, choosing his actions carefully, always aware, always in control. Seneca wrote, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." This means that if your mind is scattered, if you are constantly distracted, you are not truly present. You are not truly living. But the man who has mastered stillness is always fully present, fully alive. He is not lost in the past, not anxious about the future. He exists completely in the moment. And because of this, he is powerful beyond measure. To cultivate stillness, practice solitude. Spend time alone with your thoughts. Meditate, but not in the passive modern sense, in the warrior's sense. Observe your mind. Train yourself to slow down, to detach, to remain unshaken. Make this a daily practice. Over time, you will notice something incredible. The world will no longer control you. The noise will no longer affect you. You will move through life with an effortless calm, untouchable, unbreakable. This is the power of inner stillness. Once you master it, you will no longer need anyone. You will no longer be at the mercy of external forces. You will become a man who carries his peace within, a man who is truly free. Habit 6. The power of ruthless self-reliance. Wisdom seekers, listen carefully. The moment you rely on someone else, you have given them power over you. The moment you depend on others for your happiness, your survival, your sense of self, you have made yourself weak. The truly strong man is the one who can stand alone. He does not need, he does not beg, he does not wait for permission, he simply does. This is ruthless self-reliance, and it is the 6th habit you must master. Most men live in a state of quiet dependency. They depend on a job to provide for them. They depend on friends to validate them. They depend on relationships to feel whole. They may not admit it, but deep down they fear being alone. They fear having nothing. And because of this, they are never truly free. But the man who has cultivated ruthless self-reliance fears nothing. He is his own provider, his own master, his own source of strength. He needs no one. And because of this, no one can control him. Epictetus, the great Stoic philosopher, was born a slave, yet he became one of the greatest teachers of self-mastery. He taught that freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. This means that if you depend on anything external, whether it be people, money, or status, you are not truly free. You are a slave to circumstance. The self-reliant man, however, owns himself completely. To develop this habit, you must first identify where you are dependent. Do you rely on a paycheck from an employer? Do you need constant validation to feel confident? Do you depend on a relationship to feel complete? These are chains, and they must be broken. The man who is truly self-reliant is financially independent, emotionally independent, mentally independent. He does not wait for opportunities, he creates them. He does not ask for permission, he takes action. The next step is to develop skills that allow you to survive and thrive on your own. Learn to make money without relying on a boss. Learn to build your body without needing a trainer. Learn to think for yourself without needing someone else's approval. Every skill you develop makes you stronger, harder to manipulate, harder to break. The world cannot control a man who controls himself. But ruthless self-reliance is not just about survival. It is about dominance. It is about becoming a man who stands so firmly on his own that others look to him for guidance. A leader, not a follower. A creator, not a consumer. The world belongs to men who can provide for themselves, who do not need handouts, who do not wait for things to be given to them. The more self-reliant you become, the more powerful you will be. There is a simple test. If everything in your life disappeared tomorrow, your money, your friends, your comfort, could you still stand? Could you rebuild alone from nothing? If the answer is no, then you have work to do. Strengthen yourself until you can say yes with absolute certainty. When you reach this level, you will no longer need anyone. You will walk through life with the quiet confidence of a man who knows that no matter what happens, he will endure, he will rise, he will conquer. This is ruthless self-reliance. Master it, and you will be untouchable. Habit 7. The art of absolute control over desire. Wisdom seekers, every man carries a fire within him, a force that drives him toward what he wants, toward pleasure, toward fulfillment. Desire is the force that moves the world. It builds empires, fuels ambition, and leads men to greatness. But uncontrolled desire is also the root of all weakness, all suffering, all downfall. It enslaves the mind, corrupts the heart, and turns men into desperate creatures, always chasing, always needing, never satisfied. The man who cannot control his desires is a man who will always be ruled by others, by his impulses, by the world itself. The path to true power, true self-mastery, begins with this. You must dominate your desires before they dominate you. This is the 7th habit you must cultivate, the art of absolute control over desire. A man ruled by his desires is a man who is never free. He is a slave to the things he craves, whether it is wealth, pleasure, validation, or comfort. He chases them endlessly, believing that if he just has more, he will finally be satisfied. But this is a lie. The more he feeds his desires, the hungrier they become. He is like a man drinking salt water. The more he drinks, the thirstier he gets. This is why so many men today feel empty, restless, lost. They spend their lives chasing, never realizing that they are running in circles, forever trapped in their own hunger. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." This means that desire is an illusion. It promises happiness, but it only leads to suffering. The wise man does not seek to satisfy every desire. He seeks to master them. He does not let his cravings control him. He controls his cravings. This is the difference between a king and a beggar. To master desire, you must first understand its true nature. Desire is not a need, it is an illusion of need. It whispers to you that you cannot live without something, that you must have it, that you will not be complete until you do. But the moment you obtain what you desire, the feeling fades, and a new desire takes its place. This cycle never ends. The only way to break free is to stop chasing, to step back, observe the desire, and refuse to be controlled by it. The second step is discipline. You must train yourself to say no, not just sometimes, but always, whenever desire tries to control you. If you crave comfort, deny it. If you crave distraction, reject it. If you crave pleasure, resist it. This is the path of the strong. Every time you choose discipline over indulgence, you sharpen your mind, strengthen your will, and break free from the chains of desire. Look at the greatest men in history. The warriors, the philosophers, the kings. None of them were ruled by desire. Alexander the Great, despite conquering the world, was miserable because he always wanted more. Marcus Aurelius, on the other hand, ruled with wisdom because he had mastered the art of needing nothing. Who do you want to be? The man who is never satisfied, or the man who has complete control? Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." This is the truth. You are not rich because you have much. You are rich because you need little. The less you need, the stronger you become. The less you chase, the freer you are. The world loses its power over you when you no longer want anything from it. To cultivate this habit, begin with small tests. Deny yourself pleasures, not because they are evil, but because they are chains. Fast when you are hungry, and realize that you do not need food immediately. Resist lust, and realize that you are not controlled by your body. Avoid unnecessary distractions, and realize that your mind is sharper without them. The more you practice, the more powerful you become. A man who has absolute control over his desires is a man who cannot be manipulated. No one can tempt him, no one can buy him, no one can break him with promises of pleasure. He is his own master, untouchable, unshakable. He does not chase, he chooses. He does not beg, he commands. When you reach this level, you will no longer need anyone or anything to feel complete. You will be whole, self-sufficient, truly free. Habit 8. The strength to walk alone. Wisdom seekers, the final test of a man is this: can he walk alone? Not for a day, not for a week, but for a lifetime if necessary. Can he stand in the silence of his own company and feel no fear, no doubt, no weakness? Can he move through the world without needing validation, without seeking approval, without craving companionship? If the answer is no, then he is still a prisoner. But if the answer is yes, he has reached the highest form of self-mastery. This is the 8th and final habit: the strength to walk alone. Most men fear solitude. They distract themselves with people, with noise, with activity, all to avoid facing themselves. They mistake loneliness for weakness, but in reality, the ability to be alone is the ultimate strength. The greatest men in history were solitary figures. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet he spent much of his time in reflection, alone. Nietzsche wrote, "The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly." The higher a man climbs in his journey of self-mastery, the fewer people will understand him. This is why solitude is not a curse, it is a sign of greatness. But solitude does not mean isolation. It does not mean withdrawing from the world. It means that you do not need the world to complete you. You are self-contained, whole, unshaken. You can enjoy the company of others, but you do not rely on them. You can form connections, but you are never dependent. This is the mark of a truly powerful man. To cultivate the strength to walk alone, you must first face your fear of solitude. Spend time alone, not as an escape, but as a test. Sit in silence. Let the discomfort rise, and then let it pass. Do not reach for your phone. Do not distract yourself, just exist. If you feel restless, if you feel like you need something external to feel whole, then you have identified your weakness. And now you must destroy it. The second step is to detach from validation. Most men live for the approval of others. They shape their identity based on what people think of them. But a man who is truly free does not care. He does not seek permission. He does not explain himself. He does what he must, and he walks his path alone if necessary. This is the way of the warrior, the way of the philosopher, the way of the king. The third step is to embrace self-sufficiency in all areas of life. Be financially independent. Be emotionally independent. Be mentally independent. If you cannot provide for yourself, if you cannot keep yourself strong, then you are still dependent on others. And dependence is weakness. Seneca wrote, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." The process is mutual, for men learn while they teach. Surround yourself with strong men, but never need them. Walk your path with or without them. If you must be alone, so be it. If you must walk into the storm without anyone by your side, so be it. A man who has mastered this habit fears nothing, not rejection, not abandonment, not solitude. He is whole within himself. The world will never break a man who has learned to walk alone. He is untouchable. He is unshakable. He is free. Master these 8 habits, and you will never need anyone again. You will be your own fortress, your own ruler, your own source of strength. You will walk through life with quiet power, knowing that nothing and no one can control you. You will be free, truly, completely, undeniably free. Final thoughts: the path to ultimate freedom. Wisdom seekers, if you have made it this far, you already know, you are not like most men. Most will never take this journey. They will never break their chains, never master themselves, never rise above the distractions, desires, and dependencies that control them. They will live their entire lives as prisoners. Prisoners of fear, prisoners of weakness, prisoners of their own minds. But you have a choice. You stand at the threshold of something greater, something rare. The path to absolute self-mastery, the path to total freedom. The habits we have explored are not mere techniques or tricks. They are the foundation of an unshakable life. They are the code by which the strongest men in history have lived. They are the difference between a man who controls his own destiny and a man who is forever at the mercy of others. The world does not want you to be self-reliant. It does not want you to be strong. It wants you dependent, weak, easily controlled. This is why most men are slaves to their desires, their emotions, their relationships, their fears. But you must be different. You must be the rare exception. You must become the man who stands alone, the man who needs no one, the man who is free in the truest sense of the word. Understand this. You will be tested. This path is not easy. You will face resistance from the world, from people who do not understand, from your own mind trying to pull you back into comfort and weakness. But that is the price of greatness. That is the price of true power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the essence of everything we have discussed. The world will always be chaotic, unpredictable, full of hardship. But none of that matters. What matters is that you control yourself, that you stand firm when others waver, that you remain unbroken when others crumble. The ultimate test of a man is not how many people follow him. It is not how much wealth he accumulates. It is not how much power he holds over others. The ultimate test is this. Can you walk through life alone, with nothing, and still be strong? Can you lose everything and still stand? Can you look into the abyss of solitude and not flinch? If the answer is yes, you have won. You are free. Wisdom seekers, your path begins now. The habits we have discussed are not just lessons. They are a way of life. They are the code of the rare, the strong, the unbreakable. Adopt them fully. Live them every day. And when the time comes, when life tests you, when the world tries to shake you, you will know the truth. You need no one. You are enough. You are complete. You are free. Now go forth and live as only the strongest men do.